Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to Lynn Cullen Show at... And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello there. Was that a little odd? Are we on? I think so. There's something. Okay, thank you. Something cut out in my ear for a moment. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a Monday, a cold one, she said, sniffing. January 22nd, just to put us in time and place. Well, I didn't put us in place, did I? Hey, as often happens on Monday, I'm sort of overwhelmed because there's so much that has happened since last we spoke, and because things seem to be peppering us nonstop these days, things that in and of themselves individually would be considered, important, and yet because they're just part of the general pepperization, you actually forget about them very quickly. So it's difficult, and I suppose on Mondays I must seem like I'm talking about ancient history when I refer back to things that have happened in the last 3 or 4 days. Because it's a Monday, let me start. Just quickly with sports, because I did spend the last 2 days watching an inordinate amount of football. I got hooked. I always get hooked at the end. And if you're a football fan, you have been treated to some really good games. Quickly, with really good games. Because I mean the last fighters 2 days down to the wire, an inordinate amount good games of football. I got hooked. I always get don't want anyone to lose or to win. If you're a football fan, you have been treated. So I literally stress ate. That's what I'm calling it. I stress ate an entire pint of ice cream during the Packer 49ers game, fourth quarter. Good God. I felt so sick the next day. And then I found myself stress eating again last night, the Buffalo Chiefs game, and I didn't even care, really. So I'm going to have to be hospitalized before this is over. But the thing is, really great games. And I just want to say this. Don't let your kid grow up to be the field goal kicker. Please. You do not want that. Man, I feel for these guys. The field goal kicker for the Packers cost them the win. The same can be said for the guy in Buffalo. And the hate that rains down on them. Yow. And whenever, it's assumed if you're a field goal kicker, you're sort of like not part of the team, it seems. You're never as big. You just come on every once in a while. And because some people just see it as pro forma, they got to kick an extra point. And if they miss one, it's like, what? But they never get any real love for making them. I don't think. Well, you're either the hero or the goat, and goat with the old meaning. I feel for them. That's got to be really rough. These are young guys, and I can't imagine. I can't imagine carrying that. I can't. The guy for Buffalo was sitting after he did it, or didn't. He was sitting alone on that cold bench. Nobody came over to console him. Nobody paid any attention to him. His entire team wanted to kill him. It was brutal. I'm just saying, Do not let your kid grow up to be a field goal kicker. As brutal profession as there can be. And I also want to say, I thought the Packers were the better team on the field, even if they came away with the L. Okay, that's it. I'm done. I had to, because that was such a big part of my my weekend. Now, DeSantis. Here's what I want to say about that. Remember, like a year ago? Could it have been already a year ago? Remember when media started really, shoving him in our faces, and it was DeSantis this and DeSantis that, and he was like, I became really terrified of him. If you just listen to what the media, in their wisdom, were telling us nonstop, it's that this is the guy who will be the sort of cleaned up Trump. This is how the Republicans are going to be able to sort of get away from the lunacy of Trump and yet keep the whatever policies came with him. DeSantis was, the crown was being polished. It was, he was heir apparent. There was little doubt. And then we all had to watch his performative politics in Florida, the fighting with Mickey Mouse, the defenestration of his, I don't think that's the right word, of the educational system there. He just this horrific person, and he seemed like a Goliath somehow, right? Because we're reading all this stuff. And it really wasn't until maybe 3-4 months ago that you started to actually see him. When there started to be debates and forums, and he was taking on the other would-be Trump replacements. And when you saw him up close and personal, you recoiled. Recoiled. He made Richard Nixon look like he was comfortable in his own skin. I could never understand Nixon. He looked like he could barely walk. He was so uncomfortable in his own skin. He physically just didn't look like he had it all together. Even in, like, you wondered, is he? His posture, everything, and clearly uncomfortable around people, I think. And DeSantis, man, he was even more so. Well, doesn't matter. So I think, many things did him in, but I think the biggest is when people got closer, when people got to see him, they recoiled. They just said, ugh, is it human? So he'd be gone. And of course, gone in the same way that so many of the others go. 1 minute he's 1 minute he's excoriating. Wait a minute, I'm getting a, God damn it, hold and accept, send a voicemail. It's very confusing because I do the show on my, shut up. Okay. Did I knock myself off? No. Okay. Sorry. So I'm doing the show, but that's also my cell phone. So people call. People I don't want to talk to. And they interrupt my train of thought. But Yeah, Margaret just sent me something and said, just look at him. And I know she sent me a picture of him in his white plastic go-go boots. It's you know, it's his face more than any. He literally looks like he has to tell himself it doesn't matter anymore, right? But it literally looks like he had to tell himself, okay, now smile. And the smile is grotesque. It's forced. It's not real. Even seeing him eat, he looked weird. He's just weird. So now he goes back and continues to torment the people of Florida who elected him. I can't believe that he'll be quite as strong a governor in Florida. I can only hope. After this abysmal and extremely expensive crash and burn that he did. But mostly what I want to remember is the media narrative that didn't pan out. I want to remember I was hooked by it. He was inevitable. And so who's left standing? All the guys are gone. It's only Nikki Haley. And Nikki Haley was heard to say, well, may the best girl win. And I'm thinking, hey, girl, that's not the kind of thing you want to say to a MAGA crowd. They don't much really like looking at women or girls, as you say, as leaders. So, yeah. If I seem at all a little tentative today, I just want to tell you that I'm not in my usual place where I do the show. I am in my home, but I'm in a very hot, upstairs room. I got to stop heating this upstairs that I'm never in. God, it's warmer here than, well, heat rises. I'm up in a little room, and I have my laptop on my lap. Ha! Whoever. Yeah, it is. I never realized. Wrong. I have my laptop on my lap, and I'm sitting on a sort of couch, and I've got paper strewn all over it, and I'm just not in my, you know how you're used to doing something in one place, and then you find yourself in another, and it just, you feel a little off. Well, I'm just telling you, I feel a little off. And I almost always feel a little off on Monday anyway, so this is compounded. Anyway, God. So Ron's gone and, of course, has kissed the ring, bowed, and wow. I mean, even they all fall in line. It is the most extraordinary display of cowardice, lack of character, self-interest, the public interest be damned, but I think mostly fear that we're witnessing with Republicans. I mean, the very fact that you can count on pretty much one hand the Republican office holders who have dared to speak out against him. And I must say, in most cases, former office holders. All the Republicans who dared vote for the second impeachment, are they any of them there? They either get knocked off by the voters or they resign because they can't handle the torrent of death threats, nor the expense of security to ensure that they and their families will not be killed, which is another reason that you see the parade of cowards. They are genuinely, and you could argue legitimately, afraid that the thugs and brown shirts that Trump has set loose are to be feared. That's what their job is to create fear. They are essentially terrorists. And so you have a Republican Party now that is terrorized by its leader, who I understand is in court again today. The rapist in chief is in court today. Oh, I saw a cute little just aside I want to share with you about the judge in that case, who also has, extraordinary security now around him because the death threats are coming fast and furious, as well as to his clerk, Justice Engoron. It turns out, I love this. I mean, you don't usually when you see some old guy in black robes, you assume, I don't know, you assume a certain pre-story. You just, how somebody gets to a position of that kind of power. But it says here that Justice Engoron is a former cab driver. I love it. And he gets to tell Trump to shut the F up. He is a former cab driver, and he was an aspiring musician who once walked up to Art Garfunkel and said, "Hey, my name's Art too." God. He likes to make jokes from the bench, and he tends to be a guy that is extremely well liked, unless, of course, you're a Trumper and want to kill him. So there is that. Ed says, listening to you on YouTube, webpage not set up yet. I don't understand. Hey, the odds are, guys, and I haven't been mentioning this, that YouTube is probably going to be the place where you're going to have to get the show. We are making some moves to just take the show directly to YouTube. Just the work of doing that has yet to be done. And I've got to get on that. But that is probably, and if we do that, it is conceivable, or it is probable, that I would no longer be able to take phone calls. And since you guys are not exactly the most phone call-y kind of audience, it shouldn't make too much of a difference, but it certainly will to those of you who have called in, and to those of you who add by your calls so much to the show. And I will miss that aspect if we end up, as I suspect we will rather soon, on YouTube. Okay? I don't know how you're doing it now. I've never understood anything like this. Never. But I'm going to have to learn more. So, and in regard to DeSantis, I just want to, Charlie Sykes pointed this out. Speaking of the cowards that comprise the Republican Party now. Just last week, this is DeSantis talking about Republicans not having the courage to take on Trump, as if he really ever took him on. And he said this: you could be the most worthless Republican in America, but if you kiss the ring, Trump will say you're wonderful. And then, as Charlie Sykes points out, 7 days later, DeSantis kissed the ring. Yeah. So there you have it. Some of the things that's been said about him: a talentless candidate with a dumb strategy who said, God made me a fighter, but refused to fight. Somebody said the obituaries of his campaign are almost too easy to write. Well, yeah, goodbye. Thank God we at least won't have DeSantis to have to look at, God help us, as much. Who knows? I just can't believe that we've come to this. And speaking of media, I was earlier. The New York Times, right under, on the front page, right under that little box that says all the news that's fit to print. The headline is, voters gloomy over prospect of a rematch. And, you know, I thought, how many of these stories are you going to print? Do you just have that headline sitting there and you think, well, trot it out again. We haven't used it in 4 days. We can do a slightly different spin, talk to people instead. And yeah, New Hampshire voters saying exactly the same things Iowa voters said. And we'll just do the story again, and we'll keep on doing it and keep on doing it and keep on doing it. Voters gloomy over prospect of a rematch. Well, this voter is gloomy over the prospect of having to read this damn article every other day. Why don't you do your job? Actually look for some news. Voters gloomy. We know. Which brings me to Maureen Dowd, who I often want to punch. Every once in a while I like, but she said something so incomprehensible this weekend that I'm blown away. I mean, she didn't say it, she wrote it, and then it passed through the editorial process, and actually she had time to have a second thought. She could have said, wait a minute, it's really not quite fair. But no, here's what was printed. She actually said, in regard to the gloomy voter endless story, we're stuck with two narcissistic, circa 80 pals in a race most of us don't want. We're stuck with two narcissistic pals. She is, I'm going slow because I can't believe my eyes myself. She is equating and has reduced Joe Biden to a narcissistic pal. So she can do, you know, the easy false equivalency thing, which of course feeds into the gloomy voters thing, which is so lazy and so untrue. Joe Biden, I can apply a ton of adjectives to him. Narcissist is not one that leaps to mind. Actually, that's not an adjective. Narcissistic is not one that leaps to mind. Good God. Coming from her, it is really, I am so stunned by it. Too narcissistic, Paul. She has reduced the choice that Americans have to that. Wow. I don't know, Maureen. I don't know. I think this was the column in which she argued that she had a cold. She was in Iowa. She caught a cold. By the way, the idea that you catch a cold from the cold is bull. She might have caught a cold in Iowa by, shaking the wrong hand and then touching her nose or rubbing her eyes. But this idea that cold causes a cold drives me nuts. Anyway, so she maybe will plead feeling sick, wasn't thinking straight. Jonathan reminds me that callers, the guys who used to call the show if I'm on YouTube, will still be able to communicate with me using chat. Well, that's like email, though, right? They can also still email me, right? I got a lot to learn. But we'll do it. We'll get it together soon, pretty soon, seriously, because poor Kevin. Poor Kevin, who's the guy who gets me on and, and takes the calls and does all this and puts it out there and yada, 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 has about 7,000 other jobs he's supposed to do for a city paper. And so we need to spell him. That'd be Kev, as in Victor, I-N. Kevin. Actually, Poor. Kevin. Poor Kevin. Margaret says, I'm always on YouTube. Okay, well, good. So it'll be no different. There you go. No big deal. But for some, especially old farts like me, you get stuck in your ways. You think, YouTube? Well, I don't. YouTube! Oh, so speaking of Donald Trump, can we do the cognitive decline thing a little bit? Good God. Yeah, I'm assuming you saw that. You saw him in New Hampshire. Good God. I mean, he's always word salad. He's always incoherent. Like there's this one. It's also making the rounds. We're going to place strong protections to stop banks and regulators from trying to debank you from your political beliefs. What they do, they want to debank you, and we're going to debank. Think of this. They want to take away your rights. They want to take away your country. The things they're doing. All electric cars. That's the guy that some people want to be the president. What the, excuse me, fuck. I've been better, haven't I? I haven't been saying F word as much. I'm trying not to. Okay. But the one that really was so clearly, because he kept doing it, and after a while, the fact that he wasn't catching it made you realize that he's not even. By the way, they never report the crowd on January 6th. What's he going to? I didn't even understand that. The crowd? He means the insurrectionists. The crowd was going to say the greatest insurrectionist crowd that ever existed. By the way, they never report the crowd on January 6th. You know, Nikki Haley. He said it 3 times and then goes on to say, you know, they destroyed all of the information, all of the evidence, everything, deleted, destroyed, all of it because of lots of things. Oh, thank you for that. He's such a great teacher. He really explains things. All of it because of lots of things, like Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people, soldiers, National Guards, whatever they want. They turned it down. As Nikki Haley has, of course, now said, I wasn't at the Capitol on January 6th. So, in Trump's addled brain, Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi are, of course, one and the same. They're powerful women who he wants to kill or have other people kill for him. Wow. So there you have it. I don't know. And so Haley has taken this and run with it. And her new thing, rather than just focusing on Trump and his obviously failing cognitive abilities, she's lumping him with Biden as both too old and deranged to be up for the job. Now, Biden has shown no such cognitive stuff any more than any of us do by on occasion forget. I mean, I think he's physically diminished. There's no doubt about that. He looks like an old guy now, but his head's working just fine. You know, the ageism, just want to say, that is rampant in the country. We're so crazy. This idea that age, that by virtue of just reaching a certain age, you all of a sudden become a blithering idiot. I know people in their 90s who are smarter than tons of people in their 20s and 30s and 40s. Age is not. It's not. Some older people, yes, are, my father would say, diminished. But he was often referring to the physical self. Diminished. But head, brain, still crackling. And then I was seeing, I don't know, as somebody who's, I'm a year younger than Donald Trump. And my brain is nowhere in the shape his is. Nowhere. I think he's on drugs. I don't know what is wrong with him. And he's just, this doesn't matter. He's vile. He's just vile. Where am I? What am I doing? Hang on. This is where I'm not in my usual spot, and I'm not sure where my stuff is. Stuff. Okay, here is something I've actually been wanting to talk about for some time. And I suppose I have talked about it on occasion. But I think we're seeing the impact of it, and that is the loss of newspapers. There have been, you don't even want to know these numbers. The numbers are frightening. By the end of next year, the United States will have lost easily 1/3 of the newspapers it had in 2005. Okay. 2005, that ain't too far back, okay? Newspapers were already starting to struggle then. Nearly 5,000 of the, give or take, 6,000 newspapers that still do exist, they only publish weekly. 5 of the 6,000. So that leaves only 1,000 dailies. An extraordinary number of counties in this country have no newspaper. Not just a city, an entire county has no newspaper. In other words, no coverage of whoever is governing that county. "204 counties in the country, no news at all. 1,562 counties that have only one existing local newspaper, and that could be a weekly. It makes sense that Texas is among the 5 states with the most residents without a local news outlet. So they're in the dark. You know, local television news, which hardly gets blue ribbons for covering government and stuff. They're really good at, you know, chasing the police scanner. But television news, how are they stop and think of all the bailiwicks and governmental entities in just Allegheny County, okay? There's no way that the TV stations in Pittsburgh, which also have to cover a bunch of other counties, are supposed to cover any local entities. They can't. Every once in a while, if something's really going wild somewhere at a school board or county or you know, city council, they might sort of show up for a minute, but there is no way. And the founding fathers were very clear that the only way democracy can function and or exist is with an informed populace. And information now is a crapshoot. What is that you're reading? Is that information? Is that misinformation? Or is that the really bad one? Disinformation. You don't know. Most people have not a clue. Increasingly, I see things now on social media where someone will put something up, and among the immediate responses are, is this true? So, no, if you're at least slightly media literate, you know at least now to question what you're being told. All of this bodes ill. All of this creates fertile ground. Donald Trump and others like him. But lately, the news has been really going. Have you ever seen it? Sports Illustrated, I think one of the great magazines that ever was. It's toast. They literally laid off everybody. In a cost-cutting move, Sports Illustrated has turned itself, reporters and editors that still existed there were asked to attend a Zoom call this Friday. That Zoom call lasted 7 whole minutes. That's all it took for the newly hired chief business administrator to tell them, you're probably out of a job. No questions were allowed. The 7 minutes where they're told it's so. Sports Illustrated, RIP. The Baltimore Sun, which won a Pulitzer Prize just a few years ago. God help it. It has been acquired by Sinclair Broadcast Group. They own tons of TV stations, most of them Fox affiliates, and they are all in. They own the Fox affiliate here. Sinclair, one of the country's largest television station operators. They own nearly 200 stations that literally put out Foxian propaganda nonstop. All those stations are allied with Donald Trump. And the Baltimore Sun just got bought by these guys. They don't know from papers. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The Sun is not just the largest paper in the city of Baltimore, but it is the largest paper in the state. And it, like so many other papers, has been struggling because the internet has taken up all the advertising the papers lived on. And people don't subscribe anymore because why should they? There's all that news just for the taking on, on your phone. Baltimore Sun once employed 500 journalists, had foreign bureaus all over the world. And it's so RIP, the Baltimore Sun. Meanwhile, Los Angeles Times, its staffers walked out, I believe, is that the first time they've ever walked off the job? They did, hundreds of them, on Friday, to protest what they know is coming, which is gutting of the reporting staff. That in one of the largest cities in the country, right? Los Angeles. So Pittsburgh, we got our own troubles here, as you well know. But what this means for our democracy in a time when we know saving it is job number one, and how much harder it will be without the information required to hold those in power accountable. That's what newspapers are supposed to do. I've got a caller. Hi.
Hello. How you doing?
Hi. I'm doing fine.
Hey, a lot of these newspapers and magazines, they priced themselves out of business, just like everything else in the past. The steel workers, the UPS is going to do it. the medical field, it just gets so high with wages, and it's not because they don't deserve the wages. It's just these companies. It's all the hell with. I'm not paying that, and that's just how they are. And the business is going, it's going out anyway because the internet. So what are you going to do?
No, it's the internet that did them. It's the internet that did them in. I mean,
my
why?
wife worked here in the newspaper business for 35 years and thought she was going to retire from there. So
yeah,
she wasn't a newspaper writer. She just worked in circulation. But she
just went down and down and down.
Maintenance there. So it's like it's a ghost. It's the old buildings there, and they bought it and they're going to put offices in it. I think USA Today bought it or something a while back.
Oh, God help them.
Yeah,
because,
that's the crap.
No, God help them, because I got to tell you that's Gannett. And Gannett bought the paper in my hometown of Green Bay. And oh my God, that had been a wonderful, exactly what, we used to have. It was a wonderful local newspaper with a big staff. And Gannett came in, bought them up, and that paper is crap. It's barely 6 pages long, and you can't even, it's not even good enough to wrap fish in. It is just crap. I wouldn't use it to line a litter box.
Well, now they don't deliver it either. They mail it to you. So that's even
well, yeah. Yeah.
They just
not exactly.
They were doing internet, and they were delivering it still.
Yeah.
But now it's complete mail. I said, boy, that's wonderful. You get it on Friday, Monday's news. I don't know.
Well, that's right. And they undercut themselves in that. I mean, like, I still get the New York Times delivered at high cost, but I also then get their, I see there's news online, and by the time I get the paper, all it is stuff I've read 2 days before. Even though I get daily, I mean, it's because they stick their stuff out earlier on the internet. The print way of getting the news is always Johnny come lately, and I don't know, but it's a huge loss to us all.
Yeah, I don't think it's good. What are you going to do?
No, it ain't no way it's good. Changes
happen, so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye. That's a voice you won't be able to hear. Hang on. Get my shit together here. There was a... Wait a minute. Oh, I know what I want to talk to you about. And, Jonathan, this one's for you. Jonathan, who emailed earlier saying, you can do chat on YouTube. Jonathan was on me for a little while about telling me to watch a certain series that was on Turner Classic Movies. He's a TCM, aficionado, and he knows I am too. But I can't hold a candle to him. But a lot of people tell me, you got to watch this, you got to see this. And I think, yeah, okay, all right. And he kept at it. And so I watched. I've only watched half. It's 8 hours long altogether, 4 2-hour installments. I've watched 2. It is so wonderful that, guys, I gotta tell you about it. It's called The Power of Film, and it is a masterclass by a wonderful, wonderful teacher. In fact, that's what he is. He is a professor at I don't know, one of those Southern California schools that would have UCLA. And people fight to get into his classes. I got it's 6-hour-long episodes. So I don't know how much I've watched, but boy, it's just such a compelling. And I mean, obviously, there's all these incredible clips from the greatest movies ever. It's just, ever since I watched the first one, I ended up having a long talk with a old cousin of mine who's in San Francisco. He had called to wish me a happy birthday. And we end up talking, and the next thing I know, I hear myself parroting things that I'd learned from this incredible series, The Power of Film. I mean, he starts back before film. He goes, what is film? What is a film? It's a story, right? So he talks about how humans, we're storytellers from day one. I mean, as soon as language is acquired, I'm sure, we begin to tell stories. It's how we make sense out of this craziness we find ourselves in. I would argue that all religions are stories that attempt to do just that, make sense of things. So from day one, humans told stories to connect to each other, and then he starts talking about, if you look at the great Greek tragedies and comedies, or there was Shakespeare, I mean, so often, just by the title, one word title, Hamlet, Macbeth. They are stories about one person and how that person then is the focus, but we all can relate because we are all human. So human stories. You got to listen to this guy. He's brilliant. And the relationships then that are formed. He does one thing about how, heroes. So then another big thing about movies is the hero. So what makes a hero, and what does that narrative do for the viewer, for the person, if you're hearing the story that's listening, if you're reading a book, for the reader who's reading it, if you're watching a film, for the viewer, what does that do for us? And he makes very clear that it is the viewer, that makes that. I can't even. Why am I trying to do this? You got to watch this. Turner Classic Movies, TCM. It's about much more than film. It's about us. It's about humans. It's about how we navigate this veil of tears. I mean, you learn about life by listening to this, because he talks about how so often the ending for the hero is death. Often. And loss is such a huge part of life. And by watching movies, watching it at that remove, we can maybe come to terms often a little bit better with the realities that we live of loss and life and joy. You can't live a life without loss. And that was something I just found it fascinating and comforting. And he only uses films that have stood the test of time by virtue of people refuse to let them die. And he points out that a lot of films that like win awards and are, box office hits, they don't live. Some films just talk to us. And so you don't even have to be a film nut to understand the value of this stuff. I'm going to watch some more tonight. Wow, just incredible. I must say, each one starts with one of the hosts of Turner Classic Movies, a guy named Carter, interviewing two people who work with the professor. And you can skip that as far as I'm concerned. Fast forward through it, because all they do is they don't do as well what you're about to get from the professor who speaks directly to you and is likable and knowledgeable and so human and relatable. And it's just wonderful. That's all I want to say. I haven't gotten a tip like that for something to watch that has proven to be so. I'm grateful, Jonathan. I am really grateful. The fact that I find myself thinking about it all the time. Okay, Jonathan's listening. He says, it's 6 40-minute episodes. Oh, that's even better, isn't it? Why did they seem longer? I guess because I was so transfixed. And the first episodes are free on demand. That mean I got to pay later? Okay, the first episodes are free on demand. TCM, free on demand. Oh my God, enjoy. Just wonderful. There. I knew I wanted to say that. Oh dear. And now I don't have a lot left. What have I done? There was a funny piece in the Times about how the National Transportation Safety Board or something, whatever feds are in charge of the nation's highways, they have told the states that they need to stop putting up messages on highways that are intended to be humorous. Well, and I'm thinking, I never saw one. What? But they talk about it. I guess New Jersey is known for these. Like they put up humorous signs like, "We'll be blunt. Don't drive high." So, you're tooling down the highway, and instead of them saying, don't drive impaired, they do a little play on words. Don't drive blunt. But what the feds are saying is, hey, you know how many people see that and they don't get it because they don't get the pun, the blunt, eating a joint, marijuana. And so often there are popular culture references being used that just confuse drivers, and a confused driver is not what you want. On the other hand, the state guys argue, but if you just put up "don't drink and drive," make sure your seatbelt is fast, that gets just tuned out. So the attempt to be funny is a way to re-engage with, don't text and drive. So instead, saying something funny to get their attention. Here's another New Jersey one. Given a shout out to Bruce Springsteen, who is from there. Slow down. This ain't Thunder Road. But I guess what the feds are saying is too many people say, huh? What's Thunder Road? What did that even mean? It says that people don't get it. Here's an Iowa one. Texting and driving? Oh, hell no. The feds say they don't get it. And I understand that people don't get jokes a lot anymore, especially if they're in print, because they're not seeing or hearing an inflection or, it doesn't work. Anyway, some of the states say, screw you, we're going to continue to do them because we have fun doing it. It says here, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said that a significant proportion of drivers do not or did not, they did studies, understand safety messages that included humor or popular culture references. Oh, God help us. All right. Well, Pennsylvania never even bothered to get into it before it got put the kibosh on it. All right, that's it for me. This was odd for me. Thank you for getting me through it. And I'll be back tomorrow with, I think, my sister in tow. Have a good one.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.